Hi, Geoff Lawton here. Now we're going to take you into 1/10 of an acre with 200 perennial vegetable crops, but it's in the cold climate of Massachusetts. Eric Toensmeier and Jonathan Bates' garden is a phenomenon, an icon of diversity on a perennial scale in a cold climate, and even has a tropical polytunnel with aquaculture. Well, straight away we start to get an impression that something's going on. There's a grain sorghum here, and it's obviously affected by the heat island effect of the bitumen. And we've got tropical pigeon peas and a whole mixture of unusual sort of perennial food theme. And well, what can I say? We've got bananas here, and there's obviously some interesting design elements that have been included to get a really interesting set of production. Well, here we're in a classic food forest farm. In fact, this nursery is called a food forest farm nursery. Food forest farms produce a selection of these wonderful plants. The whole garden is themed around perennial edibles out of this unexpected climate region. And it's absolutely astounding what is available in these cold climates that we can't normally purchase in a grocery store or even normal nurseries. This is specialty, but this needs to be the general approach to the way we eat. We've got old varieties of sea kales and old plums, native plums, nitrogen fixing plants that create fertility, mineral harvesters, mulberries, grapevines, cold climate kiwi fruit. We have a whole mixture of absolutely classic. There's more than 200 edible species within this garden. There's berry crops, there's climbers, there's blueberries, there's nashi pears, there's even a bamboo hedge. The mineral diversity, the nutrient density in this garden, the soil fertility, everything has been achieved here in 10 years. Everything has been documented. There's been a book written on this, the Permaculture Lot. This is truly urban permaculture in its extreme. In our plastic house, we're in the tropics. There's tropics and subtropical crops in here with even a mixed species aquaculture with there's too much to explain straight away. This is the most incredible cold climate health food garden I have ever experienced. There is an encyclopedia of cold climates here. There's even a small chicken pen. We've got egg production. We've got mixed vegetables. There's aquatics. There's aquatics edible species here with fertilizing floating weed plants. There's cold climate kiwi about to produce more than 100 pounds of fruit. And now, just to be cheeky with bananas at the front, we have custard apple, the pawpaw native custard apple of America. Down the side of the house, you feel like you're in the Caribbean. This is a very, very special garden. It should be a national heritage site and saved for the food security of North America. And I cannot possibly explain the whole system because it is so complex. It is specialized in absolute diverse potential that now we'll get some extra explanation from Eric and Jonathan on how and why they went about this wonderful operation. So we have just 400 square meters here, and it gets down to minus 20 degrees centigrade.
we would say it's extremely cold. We really have snow on the ground for 3 or 4 months out of the year.
And this is a pretty small yard, pretty small garden.
It's tiny. The back is 90 by 45 feet, which is about, 15 by 30 meters. And then there's tiny strips along the side and a tiny strip of soil out in the front.
So as permaculturists, how did you end up starting all this up? What was the idea? How did you get into it?
Well, we were living in the country together and growing stuff on rented land, which is really frustrating because you want to be able to plant fruit trees and you're moving on and you know you're going to have to leave everything behind. And we also found it was a very bad place to meet women living in the country, and we were sort of interested in that idea. So we got the idea to buy a duplex, which is a 2-unit house in the city where we could live together at first, start the garden, and then maybe someday meet our sweeties and each have our own side of the house but still share the garden in the backyard. And that's actually what happened.
I don't think there's any other gardens like this that I know of anyway that are themed in such perennial food security in a cold climate, and it's something you obviously want other people to know is possible.
We would love to know of other places doing this as well in a place as cold as this. We've done lots of workshops here and Jonathan sells a lot of plants, so from this garden a lot of other gardens have been born. Lots of our babies of our plants have gone out. Lots of the ideas we're doing, and we tell people we patent all of our mistakes and don't let them repeat them, but we open source our successes so that they can go on and take them and make new and more interesting mistakes.
It's been an amazing experience. After the snow took down our first greenhouse a couple years back, we decided now's the opportunity. 80% of the materials are reclaimed or recycled that built that greenhouse. We've had the community help us build it. It's got aquaponics, it's got subtropicals. It's essentially Central Florida in climate in the winter in there. So the watercress here that's growing actually in the water on the tanks here, it's just growing wild. You can see it's delicious to eat all year round. The tanks are really important because they have the water is a thermal mass for the wintertime. The 800 gallons actually stays about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And in the very, very cold winter, when it's -7 degrees Fahrenheit outside, these become radiators, and that heat radiates back against these plants, and it allows us to grow things that you wouldn't normally grow in Massachusetts.
Our goal when we initially started here was we wanted to have about 300 species on our 1/10 of an acre. And what we found is that while we've tried 300 or more, really only about 200 have stuck. We're looking for things now instead of just maximum diversity. We want the diversity that tastes good and that is easy to grow, and then putting those things together in polycultures or guilds that work. We ended up with a collection that nobody had and everybody wanted, and here we are weeding all these things out of our garden because they self-propagate really well. And we realized, we could be selling these weeds for $10 a piece. And that's a really good motivation to weed. So that's where the nursery came out of.
Now we can show we can do it in cold urban climates, which the example really wasn't there before in this kind of situation in a 1.5 miles from a urban, downtown urban center.
For the average person doing this, you don't want 200 species. You want maybe 30 or 40 species. You want a couple nitrogen fixers, a couple ground covers, some berries, some fruit trees, a few nuts, a few perennial vegetables, leave some space for annuals.
Things that are multifunctional.
Yeah. You don't need this kind of diversity. That's what makes us happy. So that's what we do. We're on the front porch, and this is Chinese yam, which is a very hardy relative of the tropical true yams. It has a huge tuber underground, which is very good to eat. But above ground, it also makes these little tiny tubers we like to call yam berries. And you can collect a bunch of these in a pretty short time. We boil them up for about 10 minutes and add salt and butter, and they taste just like new potatoes. But also you can eat them raw. If you don't mind, they're slightly mucilaginous, and I like them.
If you had to choose your top 30, you'd know it pretty well now.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the easy ways to start a new region, I think. Just cram it in. And let the obvious ones self-indicate, then you can prune them out, and then you've got your 30 easy. I think it's infallible. That's an infallible starting point.
These are garlic chives. And the garlic chive flower bud is really a gourmet vegetable with the stem, and you can pick them longer than this. We also love them in the spring and in the fall as a leaf crop. So you get a leaf crop and then a flower bud and shoot, and then you get another leaf crop later in the year. This will grow almost anywhere in the world. It's hardy to zone 2. It grows in the full-on tropics. And we really enjoy these quite a bit. Chopped up,
This is a perennial arugula, or it is also called Salvetta. It's a arugula variety, a weedy one in our garden. We put it underneath the grapes, put it in salads, make a pesto out of it, grow it all year long. The raspberry, we grow a bunch here. They come back in the spring and the fall, and we eat them throughout the year.
These are pawpaws, which is one of our native species from eastern North America. It's a relative of the tropical custard apple, absolutely creamy and luscious and delicious fruit. And it's growing here on the north side of the house, really in full shade. It gets maybe an hour or two of shade in the morning. And you can see they're doing extremely well here. They don't mind our very cold temperatures. They love our hot, humid summers. And they produce really very large amounts of this creamy, wonderful fruit. And as a native species, we appreciate that it's having those other relationships with the native organisms of the area. And it's very pest resistant. It's actually used to make pesticides. So it's a very, very easily grown crop.
Asian pears, they're ripe in September. We love them, taste like butterscotch. Grows right here along the neighbor's fence. Juicy.
Not everything we grow here is a success. This is a Chinese snake gourd, a perennial in the squash family, which is great. We're on a sort of eternal quest for the good perennial squash for this climate, and I can tell you with some confidence this is not it. It turned out to be very bitter and somewhat rampant, although it has absolutely knockout beautiful flowers, nighttime blooming flowers. And it has potential for crossing with some of the tropical snake gourds to develop a new perennial sort of zucchini for us in this climate. But Jonathan and I have tried a lot of things, and over the years we find what we like and don't like, and this one we need to find a new home for. It's time to get rid of this and move something else into this piece of fence right here.
This is a Seminole pumpkin. It was developed by Native Americans in the 1500s in North America and Florida. And it'll be ripe in a couple of months. We're growing it out of the greenhouse through the window, and it's here on the trellis.
These are our hardy bananas, and while they look really beautiful, they don't make edible bananas. I'm very sorry to tell you. They come back every year. These are 10-year-old plants. They're wonderful biomass accumulators. They're great ornamentals. We use the leaves to wrap tamales. But they won't ever make any edible fruit. In a warm enough climate with a long enough season, they would make a small fruit with large hard seeds that would break your teeth. So this species, Japanese fiber banana, not one to grow for food, but great for the leaves. And in fact, these are pork growing bananas because a lot of our neighbors are from Puerto Rico and from the Dominican Republic, and they want to use these to wrap their tamales, which they call pasteles. So they come and get some leaves from us in the fall, and they bring them back later on, wrapped around delicious tamales of pork and cassava and pumpkin and other really fantastic foods. So in a way, these are pork trees for us, which has worked out very nicely.
So we now know, thanks to Eric Toensmeier and Jonathan Bates, they're opening up all those possibilities. Cold climate's not a restriction. We can have an abundant, healthy situation. We know we can do it. Let's get on with it.